All right, we continue on in this series under the heading of twisted humility. And then up under that, we're kind of looking at what we've been talking about, this problem of pride. The message today, a lot of times I don't give a title. I might just say the problem of pride. And this is actually part 4 in this series. But I want to call this message Reputation Clothed in Righteousness. I'm going to say that again. Reputation clothed in righteousness. We'll be looking at Matthew chapter 6, verses 1 through 6, and then we'll look at verses 16 and 18 as well. One thing to remember as we go throughout this year, you've heard me say this pretty much before every message. It's good to understand and to really wrap your brain around. Treat this like you have entered Jesus' school of the kingdom as one of his students, because you have. That's the reason why you ought to treat this like that, because that's exactly what has taken place if you have decided to follow Jesus. God is at work reshaping the world right where you are, and he's inviting you and I in to join him. That's a quote from Dr. Daniel Napier. God is at work right where we are, reshaping the world, and he's invited us to join in. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 provides for us a vision for how love is the greatest of all virtues. Now, when you think about that word virtue, it has to do with certain qualities, behaviors, or characteristics of an individual, right? It's part of their makeup. It has become a part of their lifestyle. It has something to do with what can be seen in a person's life. You can see if they have that quality that's in their life. Now think about this. When it's authentic, a transformation has taken place on the inside, and as a result of this transformation that has taken place on the inside, these things now are on display on the outside. But that's when it's authentic. When it's not authentic, nothing has changed on the inside of the individual, but now pretending begins to take place on the outside. And that's some of the stuff that we're going to be looking at today. And so we're going to run through these definitions that we've run through every time. And then I'm going to add another one, because we're getting to the point to where, as we're opening up this pride more and more, I want to throw another definition at you that will help you, because it's been really helping me. Remember, the first definition of pride that I gave you was my own personal definition. You can take it and run with it, or you can say, oh, that's nonsense. But I guarantee if you look in scripture and you look at how it describes it, you'll say that does look like pride. Pride is the attempt to take God off the throne and putting yourself in his place. That's the first one. Second definition of pride that we've been looking at is this. It is a deficiency of love. Remember, I always say, think about love God and love neighbor. It's a lack of understanding how those things work, and it begins to mess up how you look at God, how you look at other people, but also how you look at yourself. But Daniel Napier continues on with this second definition. It is an illusion that my value, my significance comes from how I compare to other human beings, right? Those are the first two that we've really been digging into over the last few weeks. And so I just kind of want to add another one. Andrew Pensett, I hope I'm saying his name right, in this book, being good. It's about different virtues of the Christian's everyday life. There's a chapter in here on humility, and this chapter is done by Andrew Pensett. And so what he uses as his framework is Thomas Aquinas had talked about pride. And so he broke it down in these 4 different parts. And so today, looking at Andrew Pensett, how he kind of reworded some of the stuff, we're going to start looking at these 4 different parts of pride, but we're going to continue to leave those other 2 definitions there because they're going to really help you to begin to see that. And so Andrew Pensett says it like this: ascribing an excellence to oneself that one does not possess. So in other words, it's claiming to have something that you do not have. That's just simply put. So today we'll look at 3 things that are not necessarily wrong in and of themselves, but actually they are some good things. But when they're done with the wrong type of motivation, it can hinder God's grace from trying to do whatever it was going to do in the doer's life. So the one that's doing these things, if the wrong motivation is there, then God's grace won't be able to accomplish what it was set out to accomplish. What does this mean? Here's a few things. Simply put, the ability to take on the character of Christ at that moment is missed. This will be opened up more here as we go through this, but just think about it. In everything that we're doing, it's about putting on or taking on the character of Christ, looking more and more like Jesus every day. When we do certain things, whether it's interacting with other people or whatever, when we do it with the wrong type of motivation, that moment that we had that opportunity to take on the character of Christ is missed in our life. That's the first thing. Second thing, when our motivation is in the wrong place, then we do not truly possess that spirit, or you can say that heart that we are proclaiming to have. Wrong motivation, the front that I'm putting on in front of you, I really don't possess that quality in my character. The third thing, this act of pretending, right? Not really like I am, being noticed or seen, done in order to get some type of reputation, which is what we're going to be talking about. This type of motivation, right, pretending, is a form of pride. We'll open this up some more. And one of the questions ought to come to mind is why is this a problem? Again, when we seek approval, when we seek acceptance or our value and significance in the wrong places, remember we've been talking about this, things can quickly get out of control. We've talked about seeking value and significance in all the wrong places, and when we do that, we don't understand that we're created in the image of God. There's no need to compare and compete with anybody at all. Remember that all of these conditions of the heart, they affect our relationship with God, this vertical thing, right? But also our relationship with others, this horizontal thing. 2 things we'll look at when we look at each section in just a second. When one is authentic, that person receives a certain result in their life. And the one that's not authentic, that one receives another result. The language that's used here in Matthew is reward, right? So authentic person receives one type of reward. The one that's not authentic receives a different type of reward. Second thing that we'll look at in each section, we want to make sure we pay attention to lifestyle. By this, I mean that we begin to mature to the point that things become natural in our lives. And so, Matthew 6, verse 1, and let's just look at the setting here. Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Jesus had just closed out chapter 5 of Matthew with a lesson on love, and Dr. Daniel Napier puts it this way: a love that's fully functional, right? He says, you need to be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. And that word probably better translated as fully functional. It's functioning the way that it's supposed to function. But now he continues to teach, right? This is the Sermon on the Mount. But when he's teaching now, he begins to look at these different a different level of our heart, and is really looking at our motivation. Don't get me wrong, a lot that was done in chapter 5 looked at the heart as well. It looked at the motivation, looked at all the different things that we do at the heart level, where we had certain intentions in mind, whether we did the act or we didn't do the act. And so now we're going to kind of switch it up just a little bit. There's still heart level. There's still motivation behind the scene, but this is done for other reasons, right? The chapter 5 did a lot of focusing on whether I did the deed or not, and that was looked at as righteousness, and probably more of the scribes' MO than of the Pharisees, right? Because you remember chapter 5, and I believe it's verse 20, where he says, unless your righteousness exceeds or goes beyond the scribes and the Pharisees, right, you won't enter into the kingdom. And so now we kind of transition a little more of the Pharisees' MO, right? A lot of chapter 5 dealt with the scribes on how they looked at themselves being right. And that's not to say that the Pharisees didn't do some of the same things, but this is more of their MO right here, being seen for their righteousness. And so he warns us not to live in a way that's not authentic in front of other people. The language that he uses here is one of a hypocrite who does whatever is necessary to be seen a certain way by others. The issue with all of this stuff right here is that we actually can become those type of persons, those people that are authentic in front of other people by the things that we do. We can actually become those type of people if we truly intend to, but also with the help of Jesus. The compassion given, and that's where we're going to move now. That was the setting that we just looked at. But look at verses 2 through 4. It says, thus when you give, and remember I'm reading out the ESV, thus when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. 4 things we'll dig into. We're going to look at this idea of alms, right? Alms giving, hypocrites, like I said before, lifestyle, and then we'll look at the reward involved. Now, alms giving is not the problem. The problem here is not given to those that are in need, right? It's expected out of those who represent God to the world. So that's not the problem. Giving to the needy is not the problem. Alms giving, or some called it in the ancient world, deeds of mercy, consisted of things like food and water, but it can also be much more than that. In the Old Testament times, they would set aside crops and things out of their vineyard and different things like that in their olive gardens. And these were acts of charity. And so that's what you look at when you're looking at giving alms. And so, like I said a while ago, to give alms to a person, that's not the problem that is going on here. And so, but Jesus begins to give a warning about those individuals that he calls hypocrites. He says they're broadcasting what they're doing out in these public places, right? He said, don't sound a trumpet like they would do, right? Don't get everybody's attention to what you're about to do. He said they do it out in these public places, in the synagogues and in the streets, he says. And he says they do it in order to be seen. That's the motivation. That's the MO behind it. You need to know what it is that I'm doing. I'm not giving it to you because you need it, per se. And it may be a little bit of that too, but it's like, oh, this is the perfect opportunity for me to be seen. He says, look, don't follow their examples. It's that simple. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that, but that's basically what Jesus is saying here. Just don't follow their example. But you think about lifestyle, and when I say that, I want you to pay attention to this left hand, right hand analogy. You know, some see this as making sure you do whatever you can to not let these deeds of yours to be known by other people. And yes, it can be you striving with all your might to not let everything be seen. Yes, that could be it. But I think this is training language. You hear me say that a lot of time when we're looking at certain texts. But I think that's exactly what's going on here. I think it's about us maturing to the point that things become natural to us, right? I don't have to try to do it. It's me getting to the point in my life that my MO lines up with that characteristic that I'm taking on of Christ, right? It's compassion and mercy that's taking place here. I've gotten to the point to how I've been trained up in such a way by Christ that I just do it with an authentic heart. This is that simple. It's authenticity that's working in my life. Really do have compassion. I really do have mercy for others. It's not about being seen. But then he even talks about the reward. Now, we're going to kind of just look at a few things and throw some stuff out there. But for the pretender, being seen in such a way by those around them, even though they don't possess this certain characteristic, this quality of compassion and being merciful to those in need, that's their reward. That even though they don't really possess that, they actually, got exactly what they wanted, and that was to be seen. And just think of the heart of the individual like that. We ain't gonna spend a lot of time there. But as a result, they begin to build great reputations for themselves. I don't have to really have the heart and the right motivation behind it, but guess what? I'm becoming known for the person that does this. And we all need to be careful because at any point, and that's with anything, even you think of preachers, right? You get used to people telling you that you did a great job, and your motivation can be changed to the point to where it's not that I'm trying to make sure that I have exactly what I think God is teaching me right now to share with somebody else. But it can get to the point to is I can't wait till I get them pats on the back when I get done and I step down from this podium. Just like alms giving is not a bad thing in itself, neither is gain a reputation, right? But the question is, why are you doing what you're doing? This is the pretender. This is the reward he's getting. Building a positive reputation for yourself in the community or whatever is nothing wrong with people beginning to say good things about you, right? And this is the thing, when you do something with an authentic heart, your reputation is going to be built anyway. You don't have to go and try to build a reputation. But that's another sermon. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the. It does not mean, because this is where a problem is for a lot of people. It does not mean that what you do should not or will not ever be seen. This is not what the text is saying. The text is not saying that your giving to other people that are in need should never be seen. This is not what the text is saying. I've heard so many people based off of a few people that they have seen that were doing things for the wrong motivation, and they try to apply this to their own frustration about watching those people. This text is not talking about your deeds should never be seen by others. It's not saying that they should never be or that they will not ever be seen. We know that your stuff eventually, when you're doing this stuff with the right type of motivation, your stuff will be seen at times. This is not the focus. The focus is on the motivation of the person's heart behind the scene. And you're going to see that when we look at prayer and when we look at fasting, because I've seen some people that would love to make known about their prayers, but they condemn other people that make known their giving. And so the idea is not that people see you praying or people see you giving, and then also we're going to look at fasting. The idea is what's going on in your heart. Why are you doing what you're doing? And that's the reward of the pretender. But what about for the authentic one? First and foremost, authentically participating in these acts of kindness is further evidence that we are putting on the character of Christ. You do it with the right motivation, it's further evidence that I am actually putting on the character of Christ. It's not about me anymore. It's not about me being seen. It's that these people have a need, right? And the word that's used for compassion have to do with the turning of the bowels, the guts, right? Is that I see this and I just can't turn away from it. I got to do something. It's authentic in me, and that means I'm actually putting on the character of Christ. It also reveals that God is at work in this person's life, and we had the opportunity to participate in it. Remember that God is at work right where we are. He's reshaping the world, and he asked us to join in with him. That means that this person had a need, right? And I actually had the opportunity to participate in what God just did in this person's life. That's the reward. Now you can just think about what they would do for you to know that God is doing something around you and you had the opportunity to participate in what he was doing. Think of the joy in knowing, not wondering and but knowing that the one that you're beginning to look like more and more every day has confirmed his power and his presence in your life Therefore, he's strengthening your faith. Now, just think about that for a moment. That the one, right? The Bible describes him as the one true living God is really at work. Like, as you begin to take on the character of Christ, it's a confirmation to you that his power and his presence are actually active in your life, and it does nothing but strengthen your faith. That's the reward of the one that's being authentic. And lastly, it also means that we can trust God to reward us how he sees fit, and that we don't have to do things looking for a reward. That's what authenticity looks like. Is I trust God, he understands the best way to reward me at the moment, and really I don't have to do stuff to get a reward. I do it because I'm taking on the character of Christ, and the character of Christ is always looking out for others. Let's move on. That's the compassion. The compassion of giving. And so now we're going to move to the conversation with the giver. We're going to talk about prayer. It's in verses 5 through 13. And when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, that they may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have their reward. But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And when you pray, do not heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Pray then like this: Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we have also forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. I'm gonna stop right there. Prayer is this line of communication between us and God. It's a two-way communication. It's some talking going on, but it's also some listening. Some of us are really good at the talking aspect of prayer, but we're not good at all with the listening portion. It centers our focus back on God, right? We make requests to God on behalf of ourselves, but we also make requests to God on behalf of others, right? He says, don't be like the hypocrites. Again, here we go. He's focusing on those that are hypocrites, right? The language there is about those in Jesus' day were the ones that wore the mask. They were actors, right? These pretenders. Don't be like them, right? In the synagogues, they're in the public corners. The synagogues was their places of assembly. He says, don't be like them. They do this stuff to be seen. They stand out on the corner. Make sure you notice me right now. I'm about to pray. In the synagogues, they make sure that they're in these places to be seen. And these are key themes throughout here in chapter 6. But he also adds Gentiles here, right? And don't be like the Gentiles, right? The Gentiles were another word of saying the nations, any other people group that were not the Jews. He says, don't throw up these empty phrases like they do. These babblings, they just babble on these repetitions. Right? It carried the idea of like they were going to beat their gods into submission. I'm going to keep saying this same stuff and doing it over and over until you just give in and just give me what I want. And he says, don't be like them. But instead, what did he say? He said, go into your room and shut the door, and your Father who is in secret will hear you in secret, and he will reward you in secret. Again, this is not saying that prayer should never be public. We know that we have public prayer in our congregations and different things like that. You may get called to speak at a school, at wherever, that somebody may call you and say, can you come and pray, or can you come and speak? This is not saying that your prayer should never be public. Again, this has to do with the motivation of the heart. Think of what he's saying here. Go in your room and shut the door. Think about what that means, right? I go in my room, I shut the door. That means I'm undistracted. I'm focused, right? I can really tune in with what I'm about to do. You think of somebody you think of the movie War Room, where she had her closet. It's a prepared place, right? I go in my room and I shut the door. This is a place that's prepared for prayer. It's not saying that you'll never have the opportunity, and you should never take the opportunity when it's given to you to do it in public. That's not what the situation is here. Think about what he's saying. I'm undistracted. I'm focused. I can really tune in to what I'm supposed to be doing. I got a prepared place that I can do that. I don't really have to make everything known to everybody. And this is a trusting relationship. It says your Father who sees in secret will reward you in secret. This is a trusting relationship that even if I'm nowhere else and nobody can ever hear what I'm praying to you because we have a real relationship going on, and I know that I can count on you to answer it however which way you want to answer it. But then even in the midst of this whole idea with the lifestyle, he throws out, he say, after he talks about the Gentiles, right, with their unnecessary words and their repetition, right? The language behind that is that they're long-winded with it. They just keep on growing. They keep on going. But he says, look, pray like this. He gives them a model prayer. It's not necessary to say you have to pray these words just like this, but pray with these things in mind. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying that you shouldn't pray it like it is. I'm not saying that that's it. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying this is a motto. Pray with these things in mind when you do pray, right? Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. It's magnifying the name of the Lord. Your name is holy, right? Hallowed be your name. Getting our minds back focused on God. And we'll look more about this in just a minute, but just think about some of the things that he's saying here. But the whole language of reward, it comes up again here as well, right? For the pretender, right? Their whole thing is about being seen by others again, right? Building their reputation. God is not at the center of this, but who is? Self. That's their reward. I'm the center of attention. Look at me. You can talk about me later on when everybody leaves because of how well I did it. See, God is not the center, and this is their reward. But this is another part of their reward. They continue to believe the illusion. And now we're speaking about the Gentiles. This is their reward, right? They believe the illusion that this type of praying, this repetition, this vain words just being thrown up and being long-winded with it, they believe that this is going to get them heard by their gods. And that's their reward. And I say it, I use the language of illusion on purpose. Because when you study scripture and it talks about these other nations and all of these things that are worshiping something else, it says that they're not really worshiping gods, another God, because there is but one God. They're actually worshiping demons. And that's a whole nother sermon. We're not going to go into all of that right now. But that's the reward. You keep on believing a lie. And it's an illusion that I'm actually getting through to something like a high power, whatever way they want to put it. And that's their reward. But what about the authentic one? Let's think about it. Got a clear conscience. Right? You're walking through life being authentic. And you don't have to wear a mask like everybody else. I went in my prepared place. I'm focused. I'm undistracted. I can pray specifically for myself. I can pray specifically for cares of others. And I can do it trusting that I know God. And I don't have to wear a mask in public like everybody else. I can go through life with a clear conscience, being authentic. Right? Another part of the reward, I come to the understanding that I'm doing this for an audience of one. Now, if I'm asked to do it in public, I still understand that my focus is going to the one that I'm actually praying to, and it's not that you need to say, wow, that was an excellent prayer when I get done. It's my lifestyle is authentic, and I don't have to carry around all this extra baggage, this extra weight, because I've been performing to others. This is done to an audience of one. This idea of prepared place means that for me, that I am intentional about conversing with God. And now I'm undistracted and I'm focused. I'm intentional about it. I got a place that I can go to anytime I need to pray, and I got something on my mind. I got my life is heavy right now. I need to get this stuff up off of me. I got a prepared place. I can be intentional when I go and talk to God. And then it's a God-centered prayer, right? This model prayer helps me to continue to understand that God is at the center of things and I am not, right? His plan, his agenda, his project will always be first if I follow this model. Your will be done on earth, not my will. When he is first, then I function properly in my relationship with others. And we can't never forget that. Everything we're talking about with these conditions of the heart, they affect my relationship with God, but they also affect my relationship with others. When God is first, he's at the center of things, then my regular functioning with other individuals will be how it's supposed to be. And so the compassion of giving, and then the conversation with the giver, and now we'll look at the calling for grace, and it's in verse 16 through 18. And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Fasting is this discipline of abstaining from some type of substance, right? Food or water for a period of time. And for people do it for many reasons. Even today, fasting can be from the internet. Fasting can be from TV. Fasting can be from all kind of different things. But it's sustaining from something, and whatever it is doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but it's getting in your way of your attention or whatever it is, and you decide to fast from it. Dallas Willard says that spiritual disciplines help us to tap into the grace of God, right? We exercise in these disciplines so that we can do later something that we can't do right Now, this is the reason why I call this section right here the calling for grace. It's because you got to think about it like this. You can only do so much on just sheer willpower. All right, you can try to will it as much as you want, but there's going to take some time where you're going to have to do some actual training and exercising your spiritual muscles to be able to do something later on that you can't do right now. It's another part before we move on that I think I need to be made clear is that a lot of people seem to think that fasting is something that's done that makes God answer your prayer, right? Stuff is going on and you decide to go on a fast and you're praying more and all that, and that's a good thing. But fasting does not mean that God is going to automatically give you the outcome that you're looking for. That's not what fasting is about. And I've talked to so many people about that, and I'm listening to their motivation for fasting, and they don't realize that it's a discipline that's actually good for them. It's not to twist God's arm and say, yeah, okay, you got me. You fasted. I got to give it to you now. Fasting is not to make God do what you want. You may have been taught that, but that's not what fasting is for. But look at the hypocrites, right? They're making a mockery of this as well, right? They disfigure their faces. Here we go again. It has to do with being seen by others. Everything here is about motivation. Clearly they don't understand fasting or the God that they claim to be in relationship with. Clearly, I'm saying it again, clearly they don't understand fasting or the God that they claim to be in relationship with. Because if they did, it wouldn't be about them and being seen. And so again, lifestyle. Here, he says, anoint your head and wash your face. Let me say it this way. Go about your day like it's a regular day. Get up, brush your teeth. Wash your face. Take a bath. Iron your clothes. Just go about like it's a regular day, like nobody even know that you're fasting. Again, this does not mean that nobody will ever know that you're fasting. Some people are just so spiritual that they can't tell anybody they fasted. It does not mean that close people in your life, you can't say, hey, I'm about to start this fast next week. Please keep me in prayer. I've never done a fast this long, or whatever. Keep me in prayer as I'm going to be fasting. Or as me and some other people have done, we've been on a fast together and we ask other people that we know if they have any prayer requests so we can really pinpoint on these things multiple times throughout the day. It does not mean that nobody will ever know that you fasted and that you shouldn't tell anybody. You're going on a 30-day only water fast and you've never even done a week, right? You might want to tell somebody, hey, I'm going on this fast and it's going to be nothing but water, but I feel like this is what God is leading me to do and it's going to be hard. Please be praying for me and be checking on me. That does not make you, that doesn't mean you have the wrong type of motivation, right? The idea is just go about your regular day. If you normally anoint your head and wash your face, do it. Do it. Reward, and we're closing. For the pretender, again, they're seen as spiritual, right? All of these things. They're seen as spiritual in the eyes of others, when in reality, they're not really receiving the benefits of this spiritual discipline because they're doing it with the wrong type of motivation. Let me say that again. They're seen as spiritual in front of other people. They want everybody to know that I'm fasting, I'm spiritual. I'm disciplining myself right now. Scrunching up their face like, oh man, I'm fasting, I'm starving. But they're not really reaping the benefits because their motivation is in the wrong place. Wrong motivation don't get the results that you're really supposed to get. It's that simple. Another thing, part of their reward, because their motivation is in the wrong place, is that they begin to look down on others who do not practice the same thing. So you got the wrong type of motivation. After a while, you begin to start looking at other people and like, well, why you ain't doing this? You don't fast as much as I do. You don't fast as tough as I do. My fast is always tougher than yours. My fasts are always longer than yours. These are some of the rewards that they get when their motivation is in the wrong place. Their thoughts are going to be in the wrong place. All kind of stuff is out of whack because God is no longer at the center of things. They are. But what about the authentic one? I reap the benefit of discipline. I discipline myself and I'm reaping the benefit for the purpose of something greater. I benefit from it. I'm being authentic. It's not to be seen. I'm fasting. I go about things like I would do any other day. I'm actually reaping the benefit of disciplining myself for something greater that's going to come later. That means I'm developing patience and everything in the midst of this character. Because my motivations are right, I really benefit from this training with God. I actually get to tap into the grace of God working in my life. I benefit from what me and God are doing together. And we need to understand that. Eventually, and this is the last reward, of course there are many rewards in each one of these sections we can talk about, we can keep going, but eventually I'll be able to show others how to live authentically in front of others. I'll begin to show people how to fast and go about their regular day and really benefit from it. I'll begin to show people how to pray authentically. That's part of the rewards of all of these. I'll show people how to be able to give authentically with the right motivations. And see, it's the key here. Taking on the character of Christ. The biggest problem with this is, as Pinsent says, if we are pretending, then we will not recognize our faults and seek or strive to improve in certain areas. And that's me kind of paraphrasing what he says in his book. If I'm pretending, if I claim to possess excellence, we look at here at like compassion and mercy and all of these. If I claim to possess that and I really don't, then I won't be able to recognize that I don't have it, and I won't strive to try to get it. See, that's part of the reward that you receive. You're faking so you'll never know that you don't have it, and then you won't never ever try to get it because you think you got it. It's an illusion. And that's pride. Because you have taken God off the throne and you're not doing and seeing things the way you're supposed to do. And now I see things how I want to see them. Now I try to put the focus on me. Reputation, clothed in righteousness. Begin to live a lifestyle of exaggeration. You ever been around a person that you know some of the stories that they sit here telling somebody else, and like maybe 10% of it is true? They've exaggerated everything else. That's part of the problem. won't seek to improve. How am I going to seek to improve? I'm exaggerating. I'm lying about majority of everything that I'm saying. The question is for all of us is, do you want the reward that you receive to come from people, or do you want the reward that comes from God? That's the question that you and I need to ask. And I'm saying you and I because I have to ask myself the question too when I get ready to do something. Because you got to remember, pride affects our relationship with others, and it affects the relationship we have with God. 5 quick questions. Discuss, application, whatever you want to call it, that you can begin to kind of wrestle with yourself. 1, in what ways do you pretend before others? Think about that. Reflect on it. 2, how does it make you feel when you pretend? That's the second question. 3, what have been some of the results or consequences of your pretending? Think about it. Think about your past. When you have pretended, what were some of the results from that? And then what are some of the consequences when the truth actually came out? 4, why do you think people pretend, exaggerate, and perform in these ways before people? We've talked about some of the reasons why people do that, but there are other reasons why. Why do you think people do that? Maybe you ought to ask, why do I do it? And last, how do you think you can protect yourself from pretending and begin to be more authentic? Grace, mercy, and peace be with you.